Thank you all for joining our webinar today. We'll be focused on the topic of bringing the PPM and DevOps worlds together with Microsoft solutions. My name is Annie Levant, and I'm with a Microsoft Gold partner called PROJILITY. We've been implementing Microsoft project and portfolio management solutions for over 17 years for large enterprises, everything including from engineering, construction, IT, and new product development. PMOs and CIOs typically come to us when they can't easily explain what's going on across all their projects. They don't know what resources are working on what work, and they have a hard time getting consistent reports and metrics to make project-based decisions. We are known for having a 98% on-time budget track record for successfully implementing these solutions for clients. We offer service solutions in 3 core areas: deployment and consulting services, PROJILITY's core business. We provide professional services for successfully planning and implementing Microsoft Project Portfolio Management, including Microsoft Project Online, integrating PPM with a line of business applications, and delivering strategic portfolio management solutions to support top-level management planning. We also have a growing Microsoft Power Platform practice, where we are actively working with clients to build applications, workflows, and reports to automate their most important business processes. PROJILITY offers a set of pre-built software solutions and accelerators based upon 17 years of experience, including a set of Hammerhead products that provide improved access to your cloud PPM data, accelerate access to visual reports and dashboards using Power BI, connect data between your PPM system with Microsoft Teams, and extend connectivity into Active Directory to improve visibility, insight, and control over your work, people, and projects. Finally, PROJILITY provides post-implementation support services, including expert care, designed to assist your PMO with gaining on-demand expertise on the solution supported. We also have a full online automated e-learning offering that can improve consistency and adoption for your users of your project management tools. We do have a set of upcoming webinars covering portfolio modeling and learning what's new and coming next with the Project for the Web Light Touch project management solution from Microsoft. All webinars will start at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can register for one or multiple events through Eventbrite link provided, or by searching Eventbrite PROJILITY in your browser. I hope you can join us for these sessions, which are designed based upon your feedback over the last 6 months. All videos from this and previous series are available on our best practice playlist on YouTube, listed on this page. Topics range from managing your digital transformation program using PPM technologies to integrating PPM and Agile with a line of business applications. Feel free to subscribe and access this library at any time and share with your colleagues. With that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Rob Hirschman, partner at PROJILITY, who is going to go through our content. Rob, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Annie, and thanks everyone for joining. Today we're going to be covering the core business problem of how to unite the PPM or PMO world and the Agile world. So our agenda, we'll first talk about the business problem, talk about some of the typical challenges we're seeing from a lot of our clients, give you a solution framework and a solution demonstration of showing some examples of how you can address these challenges, talk through a specific case study, and also give you some guidance on how do you get started down the road of actually addressing these problems and planning for and deploying a solution. We will take some questions at the end, so if you want to log them in the Q&A manager in Microsoft Teams, we will gladly take them towards the end. And really, we get a couple of key questions from our clients, and we thought, these may ring true with you. The first is, why doesn't Microsoft just build integration between these tools? They own both of them. They own Project Online, Project for the Web. They also own Azure DevOps. Why not build integration based off, what most people in the industry are using? So as we go through today, you'll start to see some reasons why or why not they're building that. Secondly, how do I think about using each tool most effectively? I'm using DevOps, I'm using Project, I don't know if I'm using them in a best practice way, and then I don't know if I can best align or integrate these. We're going to talk through some different strategies for doing that. Also, a big question we get is, what if my requirements change on one side or the other? Am I really stuck with what I've got with one system or the other if I do some kind of integration? We'll talk through that and you'll see some examples. And finally, can I actually integrate these systems? Why isn't there out there something that kind of a magic bullet or a push an easy button that magically makes the two systems work together? So going through our presentation today, we will get through those questions and hopefully you'll have some good solid answers towards the end. But we really want to start with some key definitions. PPM or project portfolio management is very, very different from developer operations or DevOps. You can see that each system and each process exists for a different purpose. At the top, we have PPM, which is really designed to support your overall project management, your management and delivery, and your analysis. DevOps on the bottom part is really about execution and delivery of software and software related projects. And as many projects these days are heavily software reliant, as we've moved into the digital age, we see an overlap and sometimes confusion in these areas. What do I use for what purpose? Do I do more in DevOps? Do I do more in project or PPM? What do I do? So in today's sessions, we're going to provide you with some experiential guidance and working with enterprise clients where we've learned a lot about how you can bring these worlds together. What is the best practice approach to doing so? Keeping in mind they're really different processes designed for different purposes, but they are interrelated based off where we are today as an organization. So when we start looking at it, we look at a vision of an integrated PMO and Agile world. We look at on the left, we've got our executives, our stakeholders, the people that really own the results here. They're very, very focused on using tools that give them business value, that give them business answers. So at the bottom left, you'll see they want to use planning tools and portfolio tools. They want to be able to importantly summarize progress at a portfolio level and look not only short term, but medium and long term. How are we doing against our key objectives and our business goals? So they want to make project and portfolio level decisions first and foremost. How are the projects in our portfolio doing? Is our portfolio headed in the right direction? Are we investing in the right products, programs, and projects to hit our business vision and our business goals? They also are very focused on resource management. They're about allocating the right resources to the right projects, whether it's people, dollars, equipment, and they also want to know how that's going. What is the actual versus the plan? Do we have some deltas that we need to course correct along the way? And finally, they're very interested in the financials. What are we spending? What's our return on investment now and in the future? And what should we do and when should we do it to get the business value? They're very, very focused on the results here and the planning. On the right side, we have our Agile teams. These are the teams that are typically using DevOps tools like Azure DevOps, or some organizations use Jira. They're tracking progress at different levels. So they're tracking products, which have features as a part of them. They have user stories. They're inserting work into different sprints. They have sprint teams working on different activities. And the goal is to really bring value, bring software to market faster with a good, strong offering, a good product. They're working through a series of release trains, and they also have Agile specific activities such as sprints. They've got ceremonies, they have program increments, and they also have retrospectives that are happening. So, we have some differences between the two sides, but at the end of the day, we all want to get out of this good business value, what's in the green circle. We want to build strong offerings to market. We want to bring solutions faster to market. We want to improve our market share if we're in the commercial world, or our constituent mind share. We want to grow revenue, again, in the commercial world, and we want to reduce friction between these worlds, most importantly. So with this overall vision, how do we get there? Really, one of the key challenges we see when working with clients who have both a strong PMO and Agile organizations, it's just the difference in the language between the two types of organizations. First and foremost, there's a different vocabulary being used by different organizations. PMOs tend to talk in terms of goals and outcomes, just like DevOps teams, but they're more focused on the portfolio of initiatives, the projects and programs that lead to these outcomes. They speak in terms of tasks and activities. They talk about deliverables and milestones. They're referencing resource burn rates, costs, and utilization. They really want to ensure on time, on budget, in scope delivery of projects that lead to these outcomes. Agile organizations speak in terms of user stories, iterations, features, epics, rolling up information to a product instead of a project. Work is often distributed or taken by a team in a very fluid manner, managed and tracked on Scrum boards, inserted into 2-week sprints with the goal of being able to produce working software that gets iterated upon over time. We have Scrum masters, not project managers, and Agile practitioners. They talk about cycle times and burn downs. So a key challenge in aligning these worlds is just the language between the two groups, which work and fundamentally different. When you start to think about this, it's easy to understand how difficult it can be to simply integrate PPM and DevOps, my systems, until you've really come up with a really good translation between the two that's meaningful and work to achieve harmony between the PMO and the Agile sides of your organization. What we found is successful organizations realize the strength is really in finding a common end state that works for everybody, not just one or the other. PMO needs information to make portfolio level investment decisions and ensure monitoring control of all the projects that are actively in place and being managed. Agile teams should also have consistency and expectations set by management in terms of how they deliver their work and how that progress will be measured. So in the end, Agile projects are projects just like any other project. They are planned, they are managed, and they are delivered and progressed differently than waterfall projects. But they still have a couple things in common. They still are part of a portfolio. They still require resources. We can't do projects without people, whether it's budget, whether it's resources. They still require oversight, importantly. They also require approvals prior to initiation. We can't go and just start projects. We need to actually approve them and make sure they align with our business goals, which talks to portfolio management. And also, like any project, they can be killed. They can be refunded. They should be reviewed on an annual basis because we want to get the good business value we can get out of them. So think about Agile projects as another type of project with a very different language and methodology we need to plan and work through. So when we start talking about the technical challenge now, beyond just the vocabulary challenges and organizational challenges, we start looking at PPM and the PMO on the left, and we look at developer operations or DevOps on the right. In the PPM or PMO world, we have portfolios and programs. We have projects. Within projects, we have tasks, which are activities. We're assigning resources to tasks. Those become assignments, and then we're tracking costs and cost-related information. On the right side, we've got products, epics. We have features, user stories, sprints, teams, and different kinds of celebrations. So in the PPM world and in a PPM system specifically, you can see we have a person, which is in red, which is Robert Lyons. Robert Lyons has a certain amount of work. He has 2,000 hours of work. He has different tasks below him that are actually assigned on one or multiple projects. He's going to be defining resources, drafting software specs, developing a delivery timeline. He's got a certain number of hours or effort based off those tasks, and that is driving an estimate on the effort on the right. So we have work, how much work has been performed or what forecasted, and below that we have the actual work. So he may be assigned 6 hours one day, 2 hours the next day. He actually did 4 hours on one day, and we don't know how much he's done beyond that. So he's done 4 of the 8 hours of work. So he's probably about 50% done with that specific task here. On the right side, we have tasks that are assigned to individuals or teams. They move through a life cycle of started and progress done. And those tasks are moving through a series of sprints in the user stories and the activities below those. So if we start thinking about it, what we want to do is we want to capture something that's in common with the two, that allows us to get the information on the left to do our planning, but on the right to do our execution. And importantly, what we want to start thinking about is capturing hours and work performed on the left, where it belongs, to support our resource forecasting and our planning. In a waterfall project, it's very, very straightforward. It's hours at a task level or duration at a task level. In an Agile project, are we really doing hours? And what level of tracking are we doing? Are we doing it at a feature level? Do we want to do it at a product level? And is that a project? Are we doing it at an epic level? We have a lot of questions we need to answer in order to align these worlds from a technical perspective and make sure the systems and the language works properly. We start breaking that down into hours, or is it a percent of a person's time? We can forecast, for instance, in the first bullet, 80 hours of time for Jane to work on a specific task or a feature. Very direct and very specific. Or we can agree on expectations of work hours on all projects. Maybe Jane only works 30 hours on projects, 10 hours on Agile work or administrative work. So that 30 hours will be measured, the 10 hours will be applied to Agile work, or we can flip it the other way. So we can do it at more of an activity level, or we can do it in kind of a bucket level. We have some decisions to make there. It depends on the kind of reporting you want to do. So if we can take that to the next level, we start thinking about, we have different options here. Option one is traditionally PMOs and PPM systems capture hours in a timesheet. And that's really useful, again, in a waterfall environment where we have projects, tasks, and activities and assignments. But in an Agile world, we have to start saying, well, what do we want to show up in that timesheet? Agile or DevOps systems don't have timesheets. Someone goes in and says, I did 20 hours and there's 20 hours to go. Well, how do I know how many hours they worked on what day? I can't really do accurate time accounting. And that's really not what the systems on the right are really designed to do. So we have to say in our timesheet in PPM, do we want to do product level or epic level or featured level tracking for time tracking purposes, so we can get a figure out on how many hours they've spent and how many hours do they have remaining on that task, so we can again do that planning. We also have another option to get a lot more granular in PPM, and this is generally not recommended, but this is where we add specific hours to every level of our Agile projects. And that would be a feature with different user stories, with different tasks and activities within it, with a forecast and then actuals. And that is overkill generally for Agile projects where we want to keep things very, very streamlined. This requires a ton more maintenance. So we definitely recommend having it at a higher level for your Agile projects and having assumptions around the level of detail you're capturing on your waterfall projects. The goal here, and this is really important, we hear a lot of our clients saying, hey, I don't want my developers doing double entry. Well, actually, it's not double entry. You want to separate out work progress. How many hours did you spend on an activity or a deliverable, a milestone or a feature, from how far along is it towards completion? That can be done. The completion can be done on the right in DevOps, but the work progress, the hours, are typically done on the left. Then we're using each system for really what it's designed to. The goal here, again, is to get data into one place to support the right kind of planning you want to do. Work, resource, and portfolio planning on the left, progressing on the activities on the right. So then we have flexibility around the work progress. We can allow our developers to work in an agile way, use Scrum, move tasks to different activities through different sprints, have the celebrations as needed. So this is a good practice approach that we found with a lot of our clients. You may want to start thinking about kind of separating those worlds out, not doing all of your stuff in one or the other. It's typically a best of both. So what we'll do now is we'll walk you through a quick demonstration of some good integration we've seen and how you can start to integrate your processes and some of these tools together. So now I am in Office 365. I've gone to my Projects app. One of the first points of integration between Azure DevOps and Project is something Microsoft released a little over 2 years ago called the roadmap. So you'll see I have a roadmap here called my 2022 IT Applications Program. I've got a program going on where I've got lots of different activities that are happening. Within that program, you see I have different work streams here. So I've got a CRM sales system upgrade, which is an Agile project. I've got a marketing upgrade. I've got a reporting tool project. I've got an application enhancement project, and I've got a new application plan here. These are all being done by different teams, and they're all at different states in their life cycle because they're different kinds of projects. You can see our marketing effort is a project in Microsoft Project or Project Online or Project for the Web, where we can drill into that and we see a connection. Sarah's owning that. She's the product manager. Or my application enhancement plan here. Again, Sunny's owning that. Again, we've got different managers. But at the top, you can see we have our CRM system enhancements. This is actually managed by Sunny. This is an Agile project that's actually in Azure DevOps. And how I know that, it has the little blue icon that's showing me all the activities I want to insert in this roadmap can all be inserted from my DevOps work plans. So just from a road mapping perspective, if you're just looking to provide that visibility across project work and Agile work, Azure DevOps, Agile activities, you can do all this through the roadmap functionality that's in Microsoft Project today. This is available, and once you subscribe to the Microsoft Project service, it's available through your project homepage. Roadmaps are a really, really useful way to get this, to share this with different team members, and it's going to keep the data up to date based off dates that are moving on features, iterations, sprints, but also specific waterfall activities, design, build, test, and even business projects like marketing. Great way to pull the information together. But how do we get data into our system? Well, on the DevOps side, it's pretty straightforward. We build a DevOps plan, but on the project side, we're going to build a project work plan or a schedule in Microsoft Project. Now, we're going to have different levels of detail. This is an example of a WBS for a waterfall project. Pretty standard stuff, design, build, test, deploy, where we have different phases, we have tasks, we have work or duration, and then we're assigning different resources to different tasks. This is pretty straightforward. We have our plan and our actual, and we have a baseline. We're tracking against that. But what does an Agile project look like if we're tracking it in project? Well, let's hop over to that. So again, we want to try to summarize this at a higher level. I'm just going to go to scroll to the task view here. So you can see here, we've got in this project, this is our ERP continuous improvement program or project. We've got an epic in this case, which may map to an epic we have in DevOps. And then we've got different features. In this case, each feature is a separate activity. We have a rate module, which is feature 1, a skills module, which is feature 2, and a materials module, which is feature 3. But what you won't see below this, you won't see any user stories, and you won't see any specific tasks or activities that are happening in DevOps. And that's on purpose. We don't want to build too much overhead into managing a project, a DevOps project here in project. We want to keep it at the summary level, which will help us do a couple things. Number one, it'll help us forecast our resources so we can see how many people I need on each task or activity, what percentage of their time do I need. It's going to look at dates. So in this case, we're looking at earliest sprint start, last sprint finish for the rate module, which is a specific feature. And those are the dates we're going to use to constrain this task or activity, right? And if that changes, we can move the dates. We're going to look at effort or work, and this is driven by the resources and the hours behind each resource. So if I were to show my split here, I would see on the rate module, I've got 6 or 7 people working on it. I'm also capturing different costs like materials costs, travel costs, labor and expenses, and a certain number of effort. A certain percentage of a person's time, 20%, 100%, 10%, is allocated to that specific feature. And then I've got a certain number of hours that's converting over to here in project. That's going to help us forecast how much of a person's time I'm going to need on this project against all their other projects. And again, on an Agile project, we're doing it at this higher level. So this is how we typically build our work plan or our schedule. From there, we're going to be able to go over and see all of these all in one place. So I'm going to go into my project online environment. I'm going to go into my pipeline view here. And this is on Project Online. And this is where I can get a portfolio view of what's going on across the organization. So as part of that program, you can see my ERP project, which is an Agile project, my health assessment, which is a waterfall project. I can see them all. I can even pull out specific features here or tasks or activities. And down at the bottom, I'm separating this into programs or portfolios. So in this case, my IT systems portfolio is made up of a series of projects. And I can see I've got my CRM and ERP project, which are following an Agile methodology. Then I've got other projects here that are hybrid, that are a mixed mode. And then I've got other projects here that are pure waterfall. We can see all our projects in one place, and it allows us to do a couple things. The first thing is we can start looking at dates to set expectations. The second thing is we can start to status this in a consistent way. You know, how risky is it? High, low, medium. What's the overall project health? Importantly, on our Agile projects, you know, what kind of return on investment are we starting to see? What are we spending? What is our forecasted spend? And then what is our potential benefit from this? So we may get into an argument. We say, well, we've already spent $1.4 million. We're going to spend $16 million on these projects. Well, what are we getting out of it? Well, we're actually getting $21 million of cost savings or revenue recognition. So you can see actually there's a positive argument here that each of these projects has a positive contribution to the portfolio. This is spending 11, but we're making 4.5 on it. This is spending 1, but we're making 3. And a PPM system like Project Online allows us to align these things and even say, well, do I have a DevOps project for that where I want to track the detailed work where I can go and look at my sprints, iterations, and everything there? Or is it only in project here where we're just managing the progress here? We can start to set our system up to reflect our process so we have consistent expectations and we can manage our portfolio consistently. We can also start to do portfolio management over this, not look at the timelines, but also look at the overall portfolio and move things in and out of the portfolio. So by using a PPM system, we can roll this information up and down. We can drill into it and even say, well, let's look at, an Agile project we have, the ERP project. And I really want to know what my costs are on this project. So I get down to a schedule level here, and I'm going to pull up a cost view. And this is going to aggregate all the costs for the people that are doing the work. So now I look at this. I can see the people that are actually on the project, but I can start looking at my baseline. Now down here, I've got a baseline of 12,000, but my forecast is 103. I'm already 90,000 over in terms of the rate module cost. Now that may be expected in an Agile project, and that's okay, but I want to see where I am as a whole. My forecast is this, so it looks like I'm well running over where I should have been. As a manager or director, I can take a look at this and start to have a discussion. We're spending a lot of money on something. Are we getting any value out of it? Agile waterfall really doesn't matter what the methodology is. And then look at the phasing of this. Can we get more out of the modules we're doing first, second, and third? Do we need to cut some modules to stay within our budget and meet the timeline that we have from a business perspective? So it really gives us that visibility, that insight, and that control over the portfolio so we can roll information up and then drill in as we need more information. So what does the end user experience look like? This is what kind of a director or manager would see. We showed you a little bit of the project manager view. A team member coming in will be able to actually go into a single integrated timesheet. And here you will see we have different projects here. So in this case, we've got a marketing project where our team member is actually contributing to it. We have maintenance activities, kind of big bucket of help desk or operational support. Again, it takes away from a resource's time. We've got our ERP project where we've got that rate module. And this is where we're going to say, well, the forecast is about 2.5 hours a day or about 12 hours a week. This resource should be spending on this feature. How many hours are they actually spending? They can log their time against that, and then they can go forward on other features they're working on, as well as waterfall tasks as well. They can report all their time. Again, you'll get the argument, well, I don't want them updating the data in 2 systems. Nobody has the time for that. You're absolutely right. Again, in a DevOps system, they're not capturing hours per day or hours per week. They're just capturing how much they've done and how much is left. If they're doing that, or maybe just % complete, started in progress done. Here we're doing time accounting. And it literally takes 5 minutes of a person's week to go in and update the time. We do have some clients, and we'll walk through a case study where we've actually worked with them to pull over actuals, where you have the actuals are captured at a feature level when you only have one resource working on a task, which is another constraint in Azure DevOps, which we can talk about. But the idea is you could do automated integration of this as well, or you could have people come in and just update their timesheets. You just have to capture data at the right level of detail. So once we have this, we can do all kinds of reporting. We've obviously got portfolio reports where we can look at a portfolio and drill into specific programs that might be in the red or yellow. Then we can go through, and this is all Power BI based reporting. We can now drill into a program, and in that program, you can see we have our Agile projects and our Waterfall projects all together. We can start to see a program schedule or a product schedule in this case, and then drill into specific different types of status. I wanted a status report, I could drill through that. On a typical waterfall project, we would have a status report like this. We may have more of a burn down or different discussion points here in an Agile project status report as well. But we will always have upcoming activities. We will have issues, risks, and a timeline. So it's following a standard project management methodology here for a lot of our reporting. When we take more of a product-centric look at the world, we're going to have, again, Power BI reports and dashboards where we can maybe drill down and say, well, we've got a couple different products we're supporting here, we're building out. What are those products? And let's build those out. So we can see for every product we have, if we have a product up here, we can click on it. We can see all the interrelated projects within it. And now we can see the project cost, a cost variance, the work, the number of projects. And again, we can drill into different products to see different groupings of projects and see how they align with our strategic objectives, or just show me everything related to improving the user experience that applies to one or multiple products we have. We can start to drill in and out of the data at that product level and get a timeline, but we can also do budgeting here. And we can say, okay, for new product development projects that are in the planning phase and management phase, show me all those products. And by the way, what are we spending? And now you can hone your eye in as a manager on the one project that's over budget. What are we doing to mitigate the risks on this project? Why is this one $272,000 over budget? And we can pull along, again, our milestones, look at resources. But the idea is we get that high level view of the portfolio that we can then start to say, hey, show me a roadmap of this. Show me everything that aligns, again, with procurement that is owned by a certain people. That's actually a person that's in the planning phase. And by the way, aligns with a specific product we have that's out there today. So we can use Power BI reports and dashboards once we've set our PPM system up properly to actually progress this and show the health and risks associated with projects. And then you may have certain reports that are just purely for your Agile projects. Again, getting to more of a dashboard here, we've got our programs, but we may want to look at a timeline view. This is a visual timeline of all of our Agile projects and the progress against, again, earliest sprint start, last sprint finish. We can look at just the resources that are working on Agile projects. And from a generic perspective, how many developers do we have, testers, analysts, versus the actual people that are assigned to that? And what does the work backlog look like? This shows me for each resource like Glenn, the rate module and the skill module, how much time is allocated for each one from a planning and remaining work perspective. How are we using our resources? By getting the basic levels of this into our PPM system, we can allow each group to work as they need to. The DevOps groups work as they do, the PPM groups work as they do, and you bring the data together for reporting. And finally, if you want to actually use Teams, you can actually bridge this data together. So let's say we have a project that's out there, and we've got our schedule here. We're in Microsoft Teams and reviewing our schedule, but maybe we want to create a DevOps view of this world. So in Microsoft Teams, if I wanted people to not only see the PMO schedule, which is right here, again, this is what the PMO sees and manages to, but let's take a look at today's storyboard. This is actually coming over from Azure DevOps. And now we can see the specific activities that are happening on the storyboard for today. We've got 2 stories that are in progress. Let's take a look at the feature board and how the features on this project are progressing. And we can even drill into them right here. Microsoft has built a great app that goes directly into Azure DevOps, into Teams, and allows you to visualize this and even update this if you have permission. And then you can even do sprint status reports, your traditional burn downs, where you're looking at, how far along from a sprint goal perspective are we on this project? And if I look at just the cloud component of this program, where are we from a resource perspective? What is our sprint warnings? What are our task monitoring? How are we coming along? We don't lose that level of granularity because we're reporting on the data we need to, even getting down to a DevOps status and saying, well, exactly who's working on what on the DevOps side, which will mirror what's in PPM. So there's some really great ways we can use a lot of the Microsoft technology to bring the data together just to make good, solid business decisions across your Agile and your Waterfall projects all in one place. So just to walk you through a case study of an organization we work with, they had adopted Agile. This is the business scenario for development and some non-development projects. They were deploying Azure DevOps. They already had Microsoft Project Online in place, which they were using for time tracking, resource management, project management, and portfolio management. So that flow that we wanted to develop for them was PPM to DevOps. So whenever projects were decided on, we're going to do these projects, those decisions at an investment level were handled in PPM, but the actual work planning was happening in DevOps. So once that project gained approval, it would go into DevOps and create that project as a product or an epic. Then as updates were coming in, created by the teams, you keep an alignment between that level of detail, usually at a feature level. You'll be able to bring over dates, progress, and resource information from DevOps into PPM at the right level. And then timesheets were then used to keep the data up to date from the team member perspective. So again, from a solution perspective, developers can update progress, Scrum Masters control activities, the PMO controls the program and all the activities around the portfolio and gets feature level updates, which is all they need. Developers update hours worked in their timesheets, and managers can do their capacity planning. So you can definitely bridge these worlds together. It just takes some planning on both sides. And that really leads into the next question. How do we get started? We're deploying, or we've deployed DevOps, we've got that up and running, PPM is on the way. What do we do first? One of the key questions to answer and start planning around is, where is intake on new projects occurring? Where is the project initiation going to occur? Is that going to happen in PPM and then flow to DevOps once an investment decision is made? Or are you going to let people decide what projects they're going to do in DevOps? Do I need to bring that over so I can see it as part of the portfolio? Consistent intake is one of the biggest challenges most organizations face, and coming up with a standard strategy around that and set of tools is a really, really important first step. Otherwise, you'll be in an environment where you've got projects starting in different parts of the organization. You may not have visibility into them. You want to understand the definition of a project. In a waterfall or a PPM world, it's very, very straightforward. In an Agile world, it's a little different because we've got products that are driving everything. So how do we define a product, an epic, and how does that relate to a project? And how do we want to make investment decisions on both sides of the house? PPM is a project. In DevOps, again, we've got projects, epics. Do we have consistency? A lot of organizations we've gone into have DevOps set up, and they're allowing each DevOps team to work differently. So then you have inconsistency on the DevOps side, and you're trying to get consistency so you can bring that over and merge that data. Importantly, what are the metrics you're looking for from a tracking and measurement perspective? Is it progress? Is it health? Is it risk? Is it cost? Is it return on investment? Is it some kind of business value? You want to come up with those metrics in the beginning and measure all of your projects regardless of methodology in a consistent way. And then start understanding, do you have your mechanisms in DevOps consistently set up and applied in a way that you can measure those things in an easy way? PPM is a great business planning and work planning system. It's not really designed for developers to go in there and build sprints and iterations and build code, which is what DevOps is really designed for. So do I have consistency on both sides? Again, defining products, epics, features, user stories, and work items, and then what's going on the PPM side. Another big one is, do I want to do time tracking and timesheets? And if so, why is that important? A lot of organizations take that on and then back off of that because it becomes more detailed than they need. But you can certainly start with timesheets that are planning at more of a project level and grow into task level time tracking over time if that's where you want to get to. But if you're doing any kind of time accounting, you are going to want to start to think about leveraging the timesheets. Is resource capacity planning and demand planning important to your organization? If so, DevOps in and of itself won't be the solution. You'll need to look at a solution like PPM and bridge that into the Agile projects that you're managing in the DevOps world like we showed you. And just remember, a lot of people, again, will argue, hey, this is double entry. I don't want my developers working in two systems. Well, it's not double entry. They're working in two different pieces of data at the end of the day. If they had to go into a timesheet to get paid on Friday, they're going to go into a timesheet. Think of it in the same way. You have your cost accounting side, which is how much time people are spending on a project or a product. And then you've got progress of a work product. How far along are we? In PPM, it's percent complete or hours performed, hours remaining. In DevOps, it's going to be a little different measure there, depending on what your progressing method are for your tasks and activities. You want to look at your technical environment. Are we fully 100% on the cloud? Do we have Azure AD integrated in? Do we have any integration layers available? Are we using a reporting tool like a Power BI? We have some clients that are still on-premise with their DevOps environment, but in the cloud with project. That can create some challenges if you want to do any kind of technical integration. What's the maturity, importantly, of PPM and DevOps? If you're just getting started with each system, coming up with an integration strategy is a good idea, but actually doing integration is going to be really, really hard because you want to get the tool and the process established so people are using it and putting good data and information in. And that's going to drive good data and good process. And do you have that in each system before you go about doing a technical integration of the environments? Probably the most important part of rolling out any system. And finally, how do we get to a better aligned state between these systems and processes? They are different systems. They are by definition different processes. So there's no magic go button where you can just integrate them. A lot of it is just around the planning and alignment between some of the things we covered today. So kind of in wrapping up, we want to talk you through a couple successful solution approaches we've seen from a lot of our clients. The first of those is if you're working in a dual environment with DevOps and project, think about standardizing on how DevOps is used. And that means a couple of things. Consistent processes and templates. It doesn't mean lighting up what Microsoft gives you and just going with that. Document the processes you want people using, train them on consistent use of that tool like you would any other tool, and roll that out. Because without this, it makes it almost impossible to integrate with any kind of a PPM system or process that you have. You have to have consistency, and that has to be in some way jointly understood by everybody working on the teams. You also want to define what dates are. This may seem blatantly obvious, but in the Agile world, we look at sprint dates, when things are going to occur. In the PPM world, we're starting to look at start and finish dates of activities. Defining what does a date mean as it relates to what's an Agile system and what's in a PPM system is a really, really important first step to do forecasting. Is it the earliest sprint start and the latest sprint finish date? Is it something else we want to measure? Otherwise, there's going to be lots of confusion around when things happen and measuring that. As we mentioned before a couple of times, separate out the concept of work progress in Agile from hours worked over in PPM. One is time accounting and for resource management and people management. One is progressing the actual activities that are occurring. And then in PPM, we want to start thinking about using the My Tasks or My Timesheet at the right level of detail so we track that in a way where it's useful. It doesn't have to be down at a detailed task level in an Agile project. It probably shouldn't be. And the idea is you meet the needs of both organizations. This isn't just the PMO driving, it's the DevOps organization saying, hey, here's what works for us, get everybody together and come up with the planning together. It's really about joint communication here. So, and finally, when we're looking at this, we're looking at DevOps if we're going to do any kind of integration at a project or a product level. Think about that project being an epic as defined in Azure DevOps, mapping that over into a project in Microsoft PPM. Recommend not tracking any lower than the feature level in PPM unless you absolutely have to. It's going to create extra overhead, which isn't good, and that defeats the whole purpose of a DevOps system. You also want to create this meaningful hierarchy to support any kind of reporting you're going to be doing. If you're trying to merge the data between both systems, but you don't have both systems defined, you don't have a common data model that you can pull against, it's going to be next to impossible to get meaningful data. You'll be managing two different pieces of information. So these are some examples, some successful solution approaches we recommend. Finally, getting back to the key questions in the beginning, why doesn't Microsoft just build the integration here? Hopefully that was obvious today because there's so many different ways you can use these tools in and of themselves. And when you start bringing them together, clicking one button and auto aligning the fields would be next to impossible. Back in 2014, Microsoft actually released an accelerator that linked what was called Team Foundation Server, which was the on-prem version of Azure DevOps before it was DevOps, into Project Server at the time, the on-premise version. The problem was, again, this alignment. Technically, we could flow data over, but when you move data from one place to another and it blew out schedules, nobody really knew what to do, so they turned it off. It's all about aligning the different ideas on both sides. Second question, how do I think about using each solution most effectively? Really think about PPM for centralized intake, for project approvals, for full project management in a waterfall and hybrid project, for resource cost and time management, for everything and Agile, and then portfolio tracking and reporting, which is really what it's designed to do. On the DevOps side, this is going to be your Agile or development environment where all the work is going to be managed, where the work is going to be progressed, where the work is going to be stored. It's a code repository, a task repository. It has GitHub as a part of it. That's really what that system is designed for. So think about using each one as it's designed and then bridging the two with both process most of the time, but potentially technical integration there. A big question is, okay, if I build something now and my requirements change, the Agile group decides to change something or PMOs changes something or we get new executives that want to change something, am I stuck? Well, as long as you build it with the logic and a common data dictionary between the two, no, you're just going to be tweaking things as you go forward. You're not going to upheave one world or the other. So as long as you build it with enough flexibility, with the right business processes and explaining what's in common, it'll make sense. You're not going to be stuck into a solution you're going to have to throw away. And finally, can system integration be done? The absolute answer is yes. We're not trying to tell you no, we're actually saying yes. You really need to do all this planning and get both systems in place and determine how is each one going to be used. Do we have consistency? Can we drive adoption? Do we have good data there? Then you want to think about doing that. A good first step might be, let's get some reports out there with Power BI that pool the data together, or use Teams to pull the data together as we're maturing the organization and designing how we want to do technical integration between these systems. So think about it as something that's definitely within the realm of possibilities. It's just a matter of getting the right pieces in place on both sides. So hopefully we gave you a good overview and some examples of what's possible if you want to start to bring the Agile and Waterfall worlds together. At this point, we'll open the floor to some questions. Annie, any questions in the Q&A manager? Look here.
Yes, Rob, there's a question from David Brown.
Okay.
Based on the data sustainability for higher education PMOs is 3 to 5 years, how can the system help create a sustainable level that will allow for PMOs to remain intact?
So for higher education PMOs, it's 3 to 5 years, how the system is sustainability level. I think we need, David, we need a little more information about what you mean by sustainability level. If you could provide a little more commentary in there, we can definitely maybe follow up with you after this to answer the question. Okay.
Here's another question from Julio. What is a good way to automatically pull information from Azure DevOps, such as feature percentage of completion into project online hosted schedule?
Well, as we mentioned, Julio, it's really a matter of making sure both systems are set up consistently. Once you do that, we can leverage some technologies. There's the Power Platform, where we can, deploy apps in the Power Platform that would actually look for data on one side. It would make sure they're synchronized from a user ID, unique ID perspective, and pull fields of information over to update them. Keeping in mind when you pull something from Azure DevOps, maybe % complete on a feature, it is going to progress that task in project online. As long as you're comfortable with that, it could potentially already progress the resources and the work there. If you're okay with that, we can use a technology like a Power Platform to do that. So that's how we would typically do it. There would be an application that would live in the Power Platform that would do that.
Those are all of our questions today.
Okay, well, we appreciate the questions. So I'll hand it back to you, Annie.
We do have a set of upcoming webinars covering portfolio modeling and learning what's new and upcoming with the Project for the Web Light Touch project management solution from Microsoft. All webinars will start at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can register for one or multiple events through the Eventbrite link provided, or by searching Eventbrite PROJILITY in your browser. Hope you can join us for these sessions, which were designed based upon your feedback over the last 6 months. All videos from this and previous series are available on our best practice playlist on YouTube, including today's session. To learn more about how PROJILITY can assist with evaluating your PPM or Azure DevOps environment, or to come up with a plan for implementation, reach out, and we'll set up time to review your needs. I'm Annie Levan with PROJILITY. My contact information is listed here. Thank you for attending our webinar today. Have a great day.